And we are live with the Los Angeles Tribune Leadership Live. And yes, it's me, Dr. Natalie Force. And today I'm sort of like sitting here by myself because Mo Rock, my usual co host, he is working on some very secret, very important stuff in the back. So I can't tell you anything about it. You got to stay tuned for that. But while he's working on all of that, I have the pleasure, honor, and I'm just so happy about it. I have a very special guest co host with me today. And I don't know if you can see this. You may have seen this book before. You may know that this person has a show on our network as well. If you don't, where have you been? But if you do, then of course you know that right here is my co host for today, Rex Sykes, the one and only. Hi, Rex.
Hi, Dr. Natalie. How are you?
I am so good, and I could not be happier that you have jumped in while Mo and I have been like discussing things, working on stuff, and you know how it is. You
Well,
know NLP, you know transformation. We're not sharing any secrets right now. We're just saying he can't be here.
it is just a pleasure and an honor to fill in. I am the better looking of the two, so it makes sense that
Oh,
they would want me to co host.
oh,
So
absolutely. And I mean, just look at your background. You know, I'm waiting for the dogs and all of that.
I love
um,
Mo, and it is an honor and a privilege to be able to sit here next to you. I love you and I honor you. And so thank you for having me.
thank
In
you
this
so
position
much.
is an important position while Mo is busy.
Yes, thank you. And today we're going to talk about something very, very special. And I'm saying special because it's dear to my heart. Hi, Ashley. It's dear to my heart because, as you know, we move. We're global. Movements can't stay in one place, they're global. So today we're going to talk about leadership across borders. And you figure out what that means to you. But, Rex, what does leadership across borders mean to you?
Well, I love the idea because, I happen to be born in a particular country, and so thereby, by default, I'm a citizen, and I love the country, and I don't mean anything disparaging about it. Although every country has its ups and downs, and every country has its good leaders and not so good leaders. In fact, my country doesn't have leaders; they have what's called representatives. They think they're leaders, but at any rate, my point is that I feel that I am a global citizen. That
Mhm.
this world, this globe, is my oyster, and it's up to me to be able to take care of the globe, not just my country, not just my little backyard space, but all of it and all people in it. And so I love the idea of leadership without borders because what it means is that the entire world can benefit by those people who give benevolent, positive leadership to all the other people in it.
That is so beautifully said. And since we're talking about leadership across borders, without borders, I'm going to start bringing up our guests. We have an eclectic group, as Mo Rock always likes to say. One of them is, I'm going to bring up the ladies first. Okay, one of them you may remember is the one and only Michelle McLean. And then we have somebody who's new to our show, and that is the one and only Coco. Coco or Cosette. Hi. And then last but not least, I'm going to bring in Jeremy. All right. All right. Look at this panel. Isn't that awesome? All right. You know what we're going to do. We're talking about leadership across borders, but first of all, please feel free to introduce yourselves. Everybody gets a minute, minute and a half. Tell everybody who you are and maybe just one or two snippets about what do you think about leadership, and we'll take it from there. Um, Michelle, how about you start us out?
Muted. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for having me on. I love being on here with you guys. I've missed you guys. I feel like it's been a little bit. I've been having some withdrawals from you guys. So I'm a health and wellness entrepreneur. I've been in the entrepreneur world for about 10 years now. Currently, I have two businesses. I'm working on a trauma healing course as well. So I've been in the leadership world for over 10 years now. And so leadership is something I'm extremely passionate about. It's something that changed my life. I was a leader before health and wellness and before having my own business. I was a leader, but I got people like drunk for a living. I led them in ways that were destructive in their lives. So I believe we're all leaders. I believe we're all
Mhm.
leaders, but I believe it's where are we taking people? Where are we taking ourselves first and foremost? And then where are we taking the people around us? Because we're all influential in different ways, in different areas. We're all influential in our own pocket, our own world.
Mhm.
And so I had that like mind-blowing concept that I was like, wow, I've always been a passionate leader. I've always been a great leader, but I took people places that your mom wouldn't be proud of, that my mom wouldn't be proud of. She loved me anyways. But so I think about it now of like consciously choosing where do we want to lead people? Where do we want to lead ourselves first? Because we can't take people that we haven't been or where we're not going. But being aware of that and really deciding on the direction for our own lives, being able to lead that first and foremost, and then, taking the rest of the world or the people we want to influence, with us. So, yeah, extremely passionate about leadership. I train leadership. So, I guess I'll start with, I say the most important thing with leadership, in my opinion, is integrity.
Mhm.
So being integrous with everything, with what you say, letting your thoughts, your words, and your actions, all three of those being in alignment. This is how we create miracles. Like that's really what I believe is that's how we create miracles, when all three of those, are in alignment, and that we're truly, even when it comes to like timing, I always talk about timing because it's so easy to be 5 minutes late, but even with the smallest things like that, we're out of integrity. And it's like those little tiny things being out of integrity start to build, like you're 5 minutes late and it doesn't really matter, right? It's just 5 minutes. And then it's like it's those little things that they slowly start to build, that it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter that I didn't do this. Oh, it didn't really matter that I didn't do that, right? That we're not our word. And, in the beginning was the word, sure, like most of us know how powerful, right? Our word is, that it's everything. Oh, and that's also where I realized a lot of self-worth comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Self-worth literally comes from being our word. A lot of people lack confidence. And they lack this self-worth, and it's because they're not even honest to themselves. They don't even show up for themselves, much less the rest of the world. So then, when they're asked to show up to do something, in the back of their mind, they're questioning themselves because they don't have confidence, because they're like, oh, well, I don't even show up for my own self. I don't even show up for my own things in life. I can't even commit to doing X, Y, Z. I can't even make my bed in the morning, or I can't even have my water in the morning. I can't even blah, blah, blah. Whatever the story is.
Misha, I can't tell that you're passionate. I have no idea whether you're passionate or right. I'm just saying, it's just
very soft spoken.
Like, wow.
Right?
I'm sorry. Did you need me to turn it up a notch? I apologize. I'll bring the heat next time. Next time I'll bring the heat.
The energy is fantastic, and I'd like to backtrack just a second, because you offered so many incredible gems. But Dr. Natalie, don't you agree? What Michelle said is, I think. Napoleon Hill said it. If you cannot lead yourself, you shouldn't be trying to lead other people. And we've seen examples in history of people who couldn't lead themselves out of a paper bag trying to lead other people. And then we've seen those examples of people who are integrous, who have everything lined up, and who have provided, like they lead from the front as well as not just from the back, but they lead from the front by example. So I really think those are good points. Well, Dr. Natalie, you have any comments on?
Oh, no. She had me when she said be on time. I mean, I'm interpreting that, but it's like, I think that's the German in me. I mean, it's just like, don't be 5 minutes late. Oh, no, you're 5 minutes early, honey.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm in the movie business, and if you show up, if they say your call time is 7 a.m. with your cast or crew, and you show up at 7 a.m., you're already a half hour late.
Yep.
I mean,
that's what I figured.
Yeah, wow. You can get your ass fired if you show up on time. You have to show up early, because if people are waiting for you, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every moment.
Exactly. Well, and just think about it. I mean, the only thing that we really have is time, right? But I'm digressing. We're already talking. I do want to give my new friend, I'm just going to call her a friend, I can't do this on World Life on TV, Coco, just a minute or 2 or 3 to introduce herself. We'll see if she's as passionate or if she's like holding back and then attacking later. We'll see that. But I met Coco by accident on Facebook, and when I saw her biography, I was just so intrigued. And so Coco, tell us a little bit about yourself. Oh, you're on mute. Hold on. There you go.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I appreciate it. This is beautiful. I super duper just enjoyed what we just all got a chance to witness. Boom, baby. My name is Cosette Coco Leary, and I am the CEO and founder of From Welfare to the White House. I'm a motivational, transformational speaker, a powerful women's empowerment coach, an author, and a magazine columnist. I come from direct welfare check poverty, and I say it proud. And you want to know why I say it proud? Because I exude what it is to believe in yourself despite your circumstances, okay? I have 4 beautiful children, raised them on welfare. Not that I wanted welfare. I didn't know how to get access to get out of poverty. But I had a passion, a desire to be more than my circumstances. We lived off of $742 a month, a family of 5. That's what we lived off of. If you want to bother to do the math, don't even talk about rent, electricity bills. Let's don't do back to school. Nobody is going to summer camp. And oh my goodness, need knows no season. Can I say Christmas? Yes. Okay. All of those things. In spite of all of that, I knew that I could do better. So I went ahead and decided that I wanted to give my children a living legacy and myself of self-worth. And that's what I did. So I went on and I was blessed. I got to serve in a senatorial office. I got to serve in a congressional office on Capitol Hill in DC. I wrote my first book, which is the same name as my enterprise, From Welfare to the White House. And I just blew up with things. I graduated university summa cum laude, and I lived to be a shining example of never say die, never give up, and always believe that you deserve the opportunity and you owe yourself the responsibility to live out loud and beyond your circumstances. Now, with all that being said, am I going to sit up here and try and say that it's easy? No, it took me 30 consecutive years nonstop to even be in front of all of you. But when we talk about leadership and what that means to me, this is exactly how I see it. A leader is truly a servant, because if you don't have people following your lead, then you don't have people to serve. Therefore, if you are a servant with the ambition to be an impactful leader, then understand that we are all the human race and we are all family and everybody's got a story. Let's go.
Wow. Wow.
There we go. There we go. I knew there was more passion here tonight. All right. All right.
Can I make a comment too?
Go ahead.
What's awesome about this is 30 consecutive years before she became visible as a leader. You know, that is no small task, and it shouldn't be lost on people. There's what's called the Peter Principle, where people are advanced beyond their level of competence. And so what that means is that sometimes people get promoted in business or in work or in school or whatever, and then they fall apart. And the reason for that is because they haven't been seasoned, they haven't had the experience, they haven't failed enough in order to know how to do things and to adjust and continue. And what you just demonstrated, Coco, was with the commitment and the persistence for 30 years to get where you wanted to go. Boom! My hat's off to you. Wow, what an accomplishment. Thank you so much.
Wow, indeed, indeed. And, you know, that's one type of border that we just crossed, because it always depends on which borders are we talking about. Let's go to my friend, Jeremy, who, by the way, also has a show on our network. But Jeremy, what are your thoughts on leadership across borders, and most of all, those who've been somehow not aware of you and your show? Tell them a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, I have a show on the Tribune Network called The Storytelling Alchemist Show. That goes on live every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And that is about people's story, really, like we're talking about. Everybody has a story, Coco, right? And so I have a lot of passion with people's story and how they've overcome their circumstances. And that's one of the things that I very much believe, because I came from a poor family. I was actually just spent some time with my family over the weekend, and we were talking about some things that we overcame as a family. And a lot of times we want to make those circumstances or that story like we want to say, well, that's it. Those are the cards that were dealt to me. and I can't do anything with it. That's just who I am, and that's just simply not true. And it's not true, because we can be whatever we want, we can achieve whatever we want, and we can go out there and accomplish that. We just have to change that story that we're telling us inside of ourselves. And so I think Michelle said we have to be our own leader to start off with. And I think that's the basics of self-awareness. We have to start looking at that and looking at where our blocks are, or our emotional parts of ourselves that says, I can't do that, or it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult. Those programs or stories that we've been put into us at a very young age. And Coco, you mentioned being of service. I was just thinking about that yesterday. I was talking with my cousin, and we were talking about that very subject about being of service. And a lot of times when we're out of service, because of the stories of the programs we've had put in us, there might be man, this person is being like really difficult. I'm helping them out. Why are they being so difficult to me? And so we have to kind of overcome that, because we don't know the circumstances that they're in. And you might be that angel, or whatever you want to refer to it as, or that messenger that helps pull them out and inspires them. I had a very good friend of mine who became a mentor of mine many, many years ago say, "You're a diamond in a rough." And it something in that just helped me just pull myself out of what I call my pity party, my party of one. And I finally just started looking at them. And she would tell me all the time that whatever it is that you think other people are doing to you, you're doing to yourself. And so it made me start looking at that. So I had to become my own leader. And then by default, you start to become a leader for everybody else. Because then I never even expected this to happen. I had friends of mine coming up to me and saying, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something. And I like it. And so just by working on yourself, by default, things are going to happen. And yeah, of course, we can go out there and help other people. But I think that there becomes this balance as a leader, because we don't want to cross that line into giving people our ideals. We want to help them find and become their own leaders. And when we do that, that really just helps set us apart from what we call the talking heads sitting up on a stage, giving, barking out things that they read in a book. And I mean, that does happen a lot. And, I don't want to be judgmental of anybody, but I've seen that all my life, where people are sitting there talking about things. I think it's Rex that mentioned we have to learn from experience. Also things I teach, and I don't know if Michelle and Coco and Rex and I teach from my own experience. And then half the time, yeah, maybe I read it in a book somewhere, but it was 20 years ago, and it took me 20 years to get it. There's a lot of time. I call myself a very difficult student, and so whatever is up there that's a higher power, so never hand, thank goodness he finally got it. And it's just one of those things where be proud of yourself, because you've gotten to this point, and you did a good job.
It's so funny. I was actually going to cite something from a book, but now that Jeremy said, don't just, read out of a book, I'll just put the book away for today.
Well, read that book, because that's a good book. And I've got that around here somewhere.
No, what is so awesome is, and that's why, normally I don't use the term eclectic, but today I use it because we have three amazing guests from completely different backgrounds, and yet we're all come together. And as Rex puts in his book, birds, we come together, like attracts like. There's a reason why we're all here, and we never know exactly why it happens. So, Coco, when you were just talking earlier, what jumped into my mind was, what type of borders are we talking about? Because Rex was also talking about global. We can be global. We can be across all these different areas. I know he's dealing worldwide. We're global. Michelle is global. Jeremy's global. Cassette, you're global, and Coco, Cassette, I don't know which one to call it. So what type of borders are there in your mind that we need to cut across as leaders? And, which ones are you choosing to cross, and why? I'm going to start out with the very impassionate Michelle McLean, because, I don't want to. Go ahead, please, Michelle.
Sometimes I debate if I want to turn it down, and then I'm like, no, I am who I am. So you get all the energy, baby. You get it all. So I love this topic about it being across the borders, because I think leadership, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, none of that matters, right? Every human being, leadership is the same. Showing up is the same. Taking responsibility for your life is the same. Coming from everything is a possibility for you is the same. So I think not allowing ourselves to see whether it is circumstances or race or whatever it is in our mind, because that's how I see borders. I don't see borders as just, states or countries as in borders. I see it as different realms of people of all different areas. And so it's, I think, not judging, right, of anything, having this space of non-judgment, that leadership is to be equal all around the board for all of us, for all humans. For it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, oh, because you were born here, leadership gets to look different for you. I'm like, no, it's going to look the same whether you're here or whether you're there. You get to still take responsibility for your life in all areas. You get to still have integrity, So I believe that it doesn't matter, like that seeing borders prevents us from a lot of growth, a lot of potential, choosing to see borders. Because I believe it's seeing division. When you choose.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I was just going to ask you or the rest of the panel, when you think in terms of borders, whether they're mental borders, color borders, spiritual borders, religious borders, financial borders, whatever, some people might use the word boundaries, but when we think about borders, especially recently, we think about protecting our borders or closing our borders. So how important is it as leaders to understand the concept that some people may naturally just shut down, whether it's a religious talk or a gender talk or a racial talk, not just the global aspect of borders or national aspect of borders. How important is it to be able to lead by example in terms of staying open to concepts and being able to lead people from where they are, which may be resistant to the other possibilities. So there's not just one side, but all the other possibilities that may exist. So how do you, and I invite anybody to jump in and talk, I mean, we're talking with Michelle, but to address this and say, how do we get past those borders with people who are resistant?
I think you have to listen to them first. I mean, that one of the things I found is that if we listen to them and whatever their concerns are, their fears are, or whatever the blocks are, and then they feel like they've been heard. Everybody wants to feel like they're heard. And so then, after you've listened to them and heard where they're at, and you just state a possibility, would you consider, that, something like this, just state an open question where it just gets them to ponder something. Not that we're forcing them, but we're just getting them to ponder. And you've actually led by example by you listening and pondering what they're saying. And so then they can take a second to go, well, and I think in this world right now, leaders like that are going to be vitally important because not everybody's listening right now. So we're doing an awful lot of talking, as far as like when are trying to get people to hear our points. So I think that it's a really vital right now.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about, hold on, Coco, go ahead, Coco.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Natalie. I want to chime in too, Michelle. I love everything you were saying. I honor you in everything you were saying. Rex, I totally appreciate what you just brought. And Jeremy, oh my goodness, you had me at listening. I am going to really speak on that platform. Coming from the demographic that I do come from, my background, it is not often seen and or heard of an impoverished individual if you are not a hip hop artist, if you are not an athlete, if you're not an actress or an actor, to really be able to break out of that volcanic ash of lack of worth, lack of confidence, all of these things. To have someone listen to you is the most powerful cosign. And yes, I said cosign. I am a firm believer in borrowed confidence. when I was coming through my trenches, and yes, 30 years is a long time, 3 decades, I thought at first that I would build this living legacy for my children while they were growing up. My oldest daughter is 33. My kids grew up all the way through poverty. And the thing that mattered the most that I couldn't hardly ever get was someone to listen. People often wanted to band-aid the conversation, but I had an aha moment when I was serving on Capitol Hill in DC. Some of the other women that I got a chance to know, some of them began to have open, honest conversations with me. And the most striking thing was, through listening to them, I could hear myself. I could not believe that they were having the same emotions, the same insecurities, the same lack of confidence, everything that I had from poverty. How could that possibly be when they're wearing St. John suits? You guys have everything I want. So I was like, wait a minute. And I went and looked up the word poverty in the Webster's dictionary. And the definition was simply having a lack of. It didn't say a lack of money. It didn't say a lack of self-worth. It didn't say a lack of confidence. It just said simply having a lack of. And that was the moment that I realized that a vast majority of us are impoverished in our own ways, within our mindset and how we feel about each other. So Jeremy, when you said listen, that is so critical, because it was very difficult for me to get someone to listen instead of wanting to label me with all of my vital statistics, all of me and my kids' social security cards, birth certificates, landlord statements, all this. I was saying, I am human. Hear me roar! Finally, somebody did. And I took it and ran with it. And that is the power of a leader, is when we can ignite someone to run with their passion. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Rex. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for seeing people, God dang it, for seeing people. And as we say in politics, I yield the floor.
I grew up, very frustrated. I always felt that my parents didn't listen to me and didn't hear me, but that's just my parents. I mean, maybe my teachers and other people didn't hear me, but I would get so upset and so angry and so frustrated, like, you're not listening to me. I cannot imagine what it's like for people who are disenfranchised, or now that we're older, some of us are like invisible compared to the rest of the world. What it's like to live a life where you are unheard, unnoticed, unseen, unlistened to, and or ignored by race, color, gender, ethnicity, nationality, whatever it might be, and for people to be able to be heard and listened to. What do you think it takes in terms of leadership? Because there are leaders who tell people what to do, and then there are leaders who invite people to join them. So how, and I open this up to the panel, but also to Coco, who's mentioned, is how do you get people to listen and without driving them away, so that they can notice the needs, and or the wants or the desires to be able to move people forward? What do you think we ought do to invite more people in, or have more people come in and become aware of that kind of problem in a situation?
I'll add to this one. So I think a big part of it is inviting people to see each other as souls and not so much as the other things, right? Like seeing each other as, how are we alike? What do we have in common? Starting it simply like, at a spiritual soul level, like that we all are like, a container of a spirit. We all have like this little vessel, these bones in this body. So starting at just a very basic level, that we all are the same across the board. How we show up in the world is different, right? Because we're all uniquely built, but we are all the same when you go down to like the blood and the bones, and like we are the same. So starting at that level is kind of where that's my come from in life, is that we are all the same. We are all equal, no matter how we show up in the world. And coming from that space of unity, coming from that space of love, of understanding that we all are the same. We just, like I said, we show up differently. So inviting people just to start there. And sometimes that's hard for people based on their programming as they've grown up. I grew up as one of the only white girls in my school. So I grew up I saw life like, I forgot that I was white a lot of times, just to go into one barrier, right, can be kind of how we show up. And so I forgot what my color was sometimes because I thought I was Latina sometimes, or I thought I was Black sometimes. I was just like, I was in the mix of all of it, and I loved it. I love how I grew up, and because it taught me that we were all the same, that all the details, all the borders, right, they didn't matter, that we were all the same. So that's what I invite people to come from, is looking at like, how are you the same as somebody else? How can you connect with somebody on a deeper level that's not surface level, or that's not about where you are financially, or that's not about, are you in the same business? Are you in the same blah, 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 but, seeing people as we all can be at the very base, we all are the same. So that's my come from, is to be open from that place.
I love that. And I just want to throw something in, because when you just said, we all come from the same place. I'm a historian by trade. So I used to love to blow my students' minds when you go into history and where were the first human remains found and all of that good stuff, even though some of that is changing now. And then looking at them and sort of, pointing out where all that leads us to. Because there's that old saying, right? Divide and conquer. And we've been now through that for so long. Mm-hmm. So if we're leaders, and the five of us seem to, don't want to put, words into anybody's mouth, seem to agree that divide and conquer is really the opposite of what we want to do. But that is the modus operandi right now. So I'm going to take us to a little break, but when we come back, I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts on how can we lead humanity across the borders out of that and into connection? So think about that, and I'll take us just to a teeny tiny break.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We've earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
All right.
Hey,
So,
Dr. Natalie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
no, go ahead. You had 30 seconds. So, Rex, take it.
Well, first, I just wanted to say, for people who are watching it live, they can leave comments and ask questions, as some are doing, and you'll find that there at Facebook. And we appreciate all those people who are chiming in right now. But you made a very important point, divide and conquer, which seems to be, also the zero sum. If I can crush my opponent, then I will prevail. But a house divided cannot stand is the other quote. And that's not about being conquered. That's about if your house isn't one, then you won't stand either. So you now have these outer forces. You have the people trying to conquer. And if you're not one set or one mind or congruent, then you're likely to fall victim to those who could conquer you. So I would love to hear where you were going with this and where the panel will go with this. I absolutely think this is a very important point, especially in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
I will give it to the panel first, because otherwise I'll do a Michelle.
I think that there's another saying, Rex, that you have to build your house on a foundation of rock. It's a biblical saying, and if it's built on a house of cards, that's going to be knocked over very easily. And one of the things that I had a teacher tell me, I was about 22 years old, so many eons ago, she told this to me, and she said, if you don't start doing your work, your inner work, there's going to be a world that we're going to come into that it will rip you apart. And I really thought that was interesting, and I just didn't fully understand it until I really started doing my inner work and really started looking at, my triggers and what was making me tick, what was upsetting me, what was causing me to get out of balance and that kind of stuff. And I really started to see, wow, this is, it's now getting into this last 18 months or 2 years. I really started to see there's just a substantial amount of stuff that's happening, that divide and conquer that Dr. Natalie mentioned, that, if you can be swayed in either way. And I call it I felt like 2020, my energy was in a ping pong effect. Because I had some friends that believed in this, and I had some friends that believed in that, and you'd go on social media, and it was just felt like you were being ripped apart. Until finally I realized that until we start practicing on living in the now of the moment, because a lot of people are so far in the future in their fears, or they're living in the past from things that happened in the past, that they're not living in this moment. And so I started saying, is that concern that everybody's talking about, is there anything I can do about it personally? Is that too far in the future? Is it in the now of the moment? And in this moment, what am I doing? I'm having fun. I'm enjoying myself. And so I'm not going to let that mess up my peace and my enjoyment that I'm having in this moment. And so, and as we know, that's frequency. And so we can evolve this planet just by living in this now of the moment. There's another saying in the Bible that says, when two or more gather in my name. Well, I think that's about frequency. When we all come into that heart alchemy of coming into alignment in our hearts, that frequency will raise the consciousness of the planet, and we will start seeing changes. And I think we're actually in the middle of the growing pains of those changes right now. So. And I'll hand it off to whoever's next.
Oh my goodness. Jeremy, I have to agree with you. I'm a firm believer that we do make our own reality. Of course, some of my line of thinking is a little bit unorthodox. Who knew, right? But one of the things that I really deal with is when people say that your past does not define you. Well, let me say something here, okay? When we're born, we're not born at 45 years old. This is no Benjamin Button right here, okay? The thing is, in my opinion, our past does define us. The most important thing is how we allow that to define us, okay? So when it comes to leadership across borders, be that globally, be that community, be that socioeconomic wise, be that government, whatever, we are defined by our living experiences. Okay, this goes to nature versus nurture and all of this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, our why that everybody's always talking about, know your why, we came up with our why by what we lived through. And with that, we're like, okay, I want to be this type of impact because my why has lived through this, okay? So when we are looking at how do we bring more unity, how do we bring more peace, how do we bring more acceptance, how do we bring more inclusion? The latter is the biggest part, inclusion. Allowing people to have their whys, which I say are life experiences, and encouraging one another to be bold enough to have, wait for it, the real conversation. I have heard that so many times since university till now. And the real conversations are raw as heck, okay? They're gonna scratch up some elbows. They're gonna scarf up some knees. Somebody might come out with an emotional black eye. But at the end of that, we will find more common ground. But in order to do that, we have to let people speak their ugly truth. Okay? Their ugly truth. We live in a world where people love what is shiny, what's dazzle, what's great, what sounds so pretty. We're unicorns. No, I think I'm more one of those split hoof things. But the thing about it is, in my opinion, we do live in our own reality, like Jeremy was getting at. We can look at what can I do? Like he said, is it too much in the future? I would say, is it too much in the past? And how do we encourage each other to celebrate our present? I think one of the greatest ways we can do that is in plain, simple talk. Everybody wants to use all of these spin words and stuff that sounds sexy and everything. Again, at the end of the day, we're human. And right about now, like he said, the past 18 months, almost 2 years, we need each other. And maybe that's the greatest lesson we're learning right now, is that we need each other. Don't make me break out in song. Come together right now. Over.
All right.
I love that. Can I add into that real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Come on, girl.
I am on your team with that. Compassion. I think that is the number one thing we need right now is compassion for one another, to be able to hear and understand, to be able to connect and create that unity with one another, is to have compassion for what everybody's different story is, what everyone's different experience is. Because the past 18 months, everyone's had a different experience. Everyone's had their own stuff, we'll say, come up, right? Their own triggers have come up, because we've all been forced to look in the mirror the last 18 months. The realness has shown up as we've lost jobs, as we've lost stuff that we've created, right? So we're forced to, a lot of us start with a clean slate and have to look in the mirror of all right, so this is what's showing up. This is what I got. This is what I get to handle. But relationships, divorces, because people are this is who I really married. When they're forced to spend that much time together, they're seeing the truth of this is my relationship. I don't even want this. Or then when they're going back to the job that they used to have, they're I don't even want this. It's the reality of people are really getting to look in the mirror and see I don't even like what I've created. I don't like what I've created in the past. So to talk about past that you mentioned, I believe the past is a great teacher. So I believe, yes, it builds who we are. And then it's an amazing opportunity for reflection to know, okay, so knowing this, let's look at what worked. Let's take inventory. What worked? And I literally have clients and people I work with write this down. Let's just make a list, right? Nothing is right or wrong in your life. Nothing is right or wrong. We just see, does this serve the future or does it not? Let's make a list. So doing these things, did this work for you? Does this work to build the body that you want, to build the business that you want? Did these things, these actions, did they work? And then vice versa. Let's just look at what didn't work. We're not going to make ourselves wrong for not going to the gym. We're not going to make ourselves wrong for being lazy and not creating the business. Don't make yourself wrong for the past. But it's just looking at, okay, perfect. If it's my teacher, let's look at the tools I've been given. What works, what doesn't work, and then just taking all the things that do work and being okay, I get to take these into the future. I get to build the phenomenal future, the relationships, the businesses, all the stuff I get to build it from, moving forward, the tools that did work. And then the last thing I wanted to say is looking at our gifts, that we all are built differently and uniquely. And so I think a big part of it is to come together with ourselves to really take the inventory of what am I good at? What skills do I bring the world that I get to offer? And then then I can look at Jeremy, then I can look at Rex, then I can look at everyone else's and be okay, what do you offer? Let's get together. Let's create something amazing together. Instead of seeing oh, his gifts are different than mine. Oh my gosh. Instead of doing this weird game of comparison or whatever that is, instead seeing how are we getting to work together in unity to create something better? Because we've seen what doesn't work, especially the last 18 months, we've seen what doesn't work. So we get to change some things. We get to have some compassion for each other. We get to appreciate who each other are, what your past built you to be. I get to really be grateful for who your past has built you to be, instead of, making it wrong or whatever stories that we create in our mind.
That's all great points from everybody. And I would add, if I could contribute something, and I'll throw it out there, and that is, a leader doesn't make it about the leader. The leader doesn't draw attention to the fact that they're a leader. I mean, if I sit there and go, I'm a great leader, I'm a great leader, I'm a great leader, I mean, who cares? The past 18 months or the past 2 years or the past 20 years or whatever, especially with the pandemic and everything, I'm a firm believer that, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. The pandemic is a situation where true leaders ought to arise. Those people who are really leadership material arise, and they don't get thrown by this. This is happening for us. What you just said about people are looking at things, they're going, I don't know if I like that anymore. We have been coasting for a long time worldwide and in this country on what we have thought was the way things should be. And what the pandemic has said is it's none of those things. When the pandemic hit and people weren't working, suddenly the airlines were going, wait a second, we're going to go bankrupt. We need bailouts. We need help. And you know what? None of these corporations pay their employees what they're worth. But when the employees aren't working, they're going, oh my God. When in fact, what they should be doing is giving everybody not only living wages, but exceptional wages, so that profits aren't just all about their shareholders, but that everybody, the whole, a rising tide lifts the whole boat and everyone in it, that this pandemic has brought to our attention great disparities in wealth and race and religion and economics and all sorts of things. And the true leadership is still emerging and still arising. And the people, because we ain't out of it yet. And thank goodness in some ways we ain't out of it yet, because it's still an opportunity to transform. And it's still an opportunity to look at those areas that need to be addressed, to become aware of where they aren't working, where things are, stuck, or where we need change, and to change them. So this is an opportunity for great awakening and a great opportunity for those people who are truly leadership material to step up to the plate and start leading by example. And so with that, I'm Rex. What say you?
With that, it's Rex. And I know Jeremy wants to say something too. I want to throw something in really, really quickly because we're just about, 10 minutes before the end of the show. But Jeremy, you'll get your piece. I know we're just talking. It's like, oh my gosh. I do want to throw something in because we're talking about leadership across borders, and everybody's mentioned some really, really cool things. When Coco and Michelle were just talking about compassion. At the beginning of the show, we also talked about leaders need to first lead themselves. So, question. Is one of the borders that we need to actually break through the fact that as leaders, we're allowed to have compassion for ourselves, actually need to have compassion for ourselves, and need to engage in self-care? Just throwing that out. And I know everybody's nodding, so that's good. That's good. You don't have to answer. Okay, just throwing that out. But in the last few minutes, I want to give everybody the floor for just a few minutes. Before we do that, Jeremy, you had a point before I so unkindly jumped in.
Well, it was something that Rex had triggered in me, and it's also based on what I texted you about 10 minutes ago. But it basically, Rex, you had mentioned that a leader doesn't have to say that they're a leader, and I fully agree with you. And we've also been talking about working on ourselves. And so I had texted a meme to Natalie Dr. Natalie about 10 minutes ago. It's a picture of a group of people on a roller coaster, and everybody's screaming, and it has this freaked out look, except for one person that says, when the entire planet is going through a collective dark night of the soul, but you've already been through several. And one of the things that it just made me think, and you kind of triggered me, Rex, is that when we've done all this work, when of course all of us have gone through these dark nights of the soul, and we've gone through them a lot, we don't even feel necessary to say, I'm a leader. It's not even in our vocabulary. And I'm not sure if everybody else on the panel will agree with this, but I feel as I get further in my journey, I don't even feel the need to talk sometimes. Like I'll be in a group of people and I just kind of be observing. And 10 years ago, I had to be the one talking all the time. And it was just one of those things. And so what I've just found as I've gotten older, and I don't know if it's through the journey or just getting wiser, or getting lazy, I'm not really sure. It could be that too. That I just don't feel the need to talk all the time. And so I think what we're seeing is that we grow and we go through these hard times and they become a part of us. I just actually had COVID last month for about 3 weeks, and this is going to be an unpopular phrase, what I'm saying, but I actually didn't consider it necessarily a bad thing. It was 3 weeks of meditation. Of course I was sick, of course I didn't feel good, and yeah, I felt fatigue and all that stuff. But through that time, I really got things that I had been thinking about and hadn't decided about, and I got in alignment with them. So my house, that was house of cards in some area, became stronger and was more a strong foundation. And I think that in that sense, this last 18 months or 2 years, or even 20 years, as Rex mentioned, has been building us up to this point and getting us that strong foundation. And I really think that all of you out there that are watching, look at all the great things you've done in your life, and you'll see a lot. You'll see the blessings there. So I'll hand the mic back over to Dr. Natalie and Rex.
Okay, I got it. I got the mic. All right. So final words for today, because clearly this is an ongoing conversation. Every show that Mo and I, and sometimes with amazing co-hosts like Rex, are doing is about leadership. And when we uncover more and more issues and we dig deeper and deeper. But for today, leadership across borders and all the tips that we've already heard, the experience already shared. What are your final thoughts for the audience? Maybe some action tips, maybe just a thought. I'm going to give the stage to everybody for just, a few minutes, not like an hour, because I know we're all passionate about this. So please speak your mind. I'm just going to see if I can start out actually today with Coco. Let me see if I can do this.
Awesome.
You're up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie. I always say be the support system you've always wanted. That is a huge thing for all of the greatness that we have and that we tremendously have combined together as the human race. We need support systems. We need people that are truly willing to walk the walk with us. We all have been taught from our own vantage points. We know that. But for me, being that support system that I always wanted is where I really serve from. Because in that, I am able to really put myself in someone else's shoes and serve the way I wish I had been served. So for the fantastic people that are watching, dreamers, entrepreneurs, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, stay-at-home grandparents, people who are living non-traditional lives, like I said, stay-at-home grandparents, all of that, understand that we all bring something to the table and that we all can support each other and, yes, truly support ourselves by being that support system, because the values that we believe in and bring within that support allows us to show up tremendously. And that also is a form of self-care. So please always believe in yourself and always be willing to support somebody else's dreams.
Wow. Okay. Support system and dreams. All right. Eeny, miny, moe. Jeremy, you're up. What are your final thoughts?
Well, I think that one of the things I would like to end with is what you mentioned earlier is you mentioned self-care, but it's also be good to yourself. There's one of those things that there's things that I did 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, however long ago. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and they're not even really mistakes, they're opportunities. And so when we start changing our focus from mistakes to opportunities, and we look at things that we've done as blessings because they help us grow, I think that that's something that instead of beating ourselves up, let's be good to ourselves. And much like one of the things I would also like to share with everybody is spend some time in the mirror every day, looking at yourself, telling yourself that you love yourself. It's not narcissistic to care about yourself. That's self-care. There is a line that we can cross into. However, try it, because I can guarantee you, if you go and look at yourself and say that you love yourself, you'll start treating people how you treat yourself, and you'll see the difference in your relationships as well. So it'll be very much a blessing. And with that, I'll hand off the mic again.
All right, Michelle, I'm going to give the floor to you.
Yeah, so what comes up for me is similar to what Jeremy said, just talking about compassion for ourselves. I think it's the lack of compassion for ourselves that leads to self-judgment, which leads to why we judge other people, why we then have hatred for other people. It's a lack of compassion. It's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of compassion. So I think, just like what Jeremy was saying, every day having compassion for ourselves and looking at things of, does this serve me or does it not serve me? So instead of looking at something and thinking, oh, this is wrong, they're wrong for doing that, or I'm wrong for doing that, because that's where it starts, right? It all starts with ourselves, of making ourselves right or wrong. I shouldn't have done this. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, like the whole self beat up internal conversation, And so instead just being like, okay, does this serve? Like, does this work? Right? It's just, does it work or does it not work? If it doesn't work, okay, stop doing it. And then, okay, what doesn't work shows us instantly, okay, well then what does work? What's the opposite? So in our lives, okay, so we can see easy what works and what doesn't work. So instead of judgment, because that's what judgment comes from, making things right and wrong. So we can remove right and wrong from everything. I know, and this is hard, right? This is hard for a lot of us, because we were raised to be like, oh, this is wrong, and making people wrong. Or this is right, this is what, like that. But instead of that conversation, what if we can completely remove that? And instead just seeing it as okay, so does this serve or does it not serve? Do these judgments, does this way of living, does this serve who I'm becoming, who I want to become in the world? Does it serve or does it not serve? Does it work or does it not work? And then just coming from that place can really support with compassion and acceptance. I think this is where we can accept ourselves. And then in return, we accept those around us. And then this can help create unity, love, leadership, and help, dissolve some of the borders that are keeping us apart. So with that, I'm complete.
And we're back to borders. Now, before I hand it over for final words to my amazing co-host today, I want to remind everybody, this book right here is one of the books you need to read. You can go to rexsikes.com. You can get it there, because Rex Sikes clearly has been through the trenches and is sharing his experience with you. And if the book is not enough for you, please remember that Rex also has his own show on our network. It airs Thursdays. And if you missed any of the shows, you can still find it on our Roku channel. And yes, of course, I would be remiss to mention Jeremy's show, of course. So stay tuned for all of that, because you have leaders right here who want to serve you, who want to give you advice. And as you know, everything that we do on the LA Tribune is really meant to serve our community. And in that, Rex, I know you have your own show. I know you're on Clubhouse every single day. Lately, I haven't been able to make it because there's like a huge time difference right now. But if you haven't been on Clubhouse at, I believe, 10 a.m. Eastern, or is it 10:30 now, you might want to check out Rex's events there every single day. But Rex, what are your final thoughts for today?
Wow. Well, thank you. And thank you for mentioning the book. I'm so pleased. And yeah, I want everybody in the world to read it, because it is packed with powerful life transforming principles and practices. And but here's what I would say, and irrespective of what faith or religion or franchise you think about or belong, I would venture to use the what would Jesus do? And the reason that I do that is because when you look into the biblical stories of what would Jesus do, in most cases, if there was somebody who had a need, somebody who was sick or infirmed, somebody who was a sinner, a prostitute or somebody, whatever it was, Jesus would interact with them and then say, pretty much, hey, how you doing? Do you believe? And they would say, yes. He would say, good, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace, and go and sin no more. So he didn't judge. He didn't criticize. He didn't refuse. He didn't turn them down. He didn't say, you know what, you're bad and you don't deserve food. You don't deserve healing. You don't deserve forgiveness. He accepted everybody, apparently, who came to him and in some way ministered to them. And so with the Sermon on the Mount, and you think about these things, what we as leaders I think the invitation is to help other people. If somebody needs a leg up or a handout or a lift up, then that's what we ought to be able to provide. We shouldn't be in the business of judging people as they aren't worthy of help, or they need to do their own thing, or they need to pull themselves up. Tough love is okay, right? But to insult somebody and then say, you're lazy, get a job, is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to show people that they are valued, that they are that they're worthy to be listened to, that they need to be heard, they need to be accepted. I've learned more from derelicts, if you want to call them that, or bums on park benches or bus stops in many ways than I have learned from some of the top people in our, in the world or in the industry, because they were real and they were raw and they understood that, hey, look, we're all in it together. Some have more and some have less, but you know what? We're all in it together. And so if you have more than someone else, give as generously as you can give of your attention, of your time, of your money, of your energy, of anything, so that we can help uplift everyone in the world and make it a better place for all of us. Because when the bottom is doing well, the top is doing well. And then they don't have to worry about controlling it or manipulating it or holding it down, or that they might revolt. If we're all living well, then we're all living well. And that should be obvious, but sadly it isn't to all of the people, and that's what we need to transform. And with that, I'm Rex.
So we all should be living well. And of course, as leaders, we can lead by example. I want to thank Cosette. Jeremy had to jump off, and Michelle, and thank you, Rex. Everybody else, we've got shows coming up just about every single day. So stay tuned, check us out, YouTube, and of course, the Roku channel. See you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Natalie. You rock.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. You have a show too.
Yes, I do. Tomorrow.